Good afternoon. I am Andrea Chisholm with the Midday News. A special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. Scores of students sitting CSEC and CAPE exams returned to school this morning to finalize preparations. More than 150 secondary schools were slated to reopen today ahead of the July 13 start of the exams. TVJ News visited the Norman Manley and Calabar High Schools in St. Andrew.
It has been fairly good so far. Students are cooperating, they are wearing the mask. The only problem is we have to be reminding them about the social distancing because they haven't seen one another in a while. So they are happy to talk and chat, and we have to keep maintaining the social distancing. But day one, as you would have noticed, they come through the gate, they are sanitized, and nobody comes through the gate without a mask. We have a hand washing station. We have 2 tents that they might not have been ready when you came in. But the first tent is to test the students' temperature. And if the temperature is high, we put them in the second tent to cool down. We test them again. If they are running a fever, then the nurse takes over and gets in touch with the health center.
Every boy who came on the campus this morning was actually wearing a mask. Boys and their teachers. So it started off pretty well. The numbers are, we expected probably about 350 in total. And the reason for that is that we have had a number of parents who have called to say that for various reasons that the young one is not coming out. We also have probably have about anywhere between 10 and 15 of our grade 11 young men who are carrying other illnesses. And we took the decision very early that those young men would stay home and then we'll provide the work for them online, and for those who we're going to do some photocopying for them. So we have taken care of that part of it.
Small business operators at the popular Salt River Beach in Clarendon are delighted the facility has finally reopened. Many say they have been bankrupt due to closure over the past few months. Details in this report.
This was the Salt River Bathing Beach in Clarendon a few days ago. Empty as residents obey the stay-at-home orders. Now, this was Salt River on Sunday. Dozens of cars, hundreds of swimmers. The restrictions have been lifted and residents were happy for a day out.
Seems like if him did stay another day with this lockdown, the people them would have got crazy. Come in and know where so much people come from today.
With the revelers back, the demand for drinks and food also returned, and the people wanted everything. Fish, festivals, crab and chicken. The business people we spoke with said business was great.
We get a good turn up today. Although we always have a Sunday looking like this, but true from the COVID-19, it don't look like this. So true that I don't out here about 2 months and hard now, because every time you out here, the police them come around off everybody off of the beach.
I have gone bankrupt. I owe almost everybody right now because I owe long, nothing not going on. So today to us, God have bring through a big breakthrough today. With the help of Mr. Holness, we see light today.
You find say everybody come out for people hot. I want to warm down so they come out and I go and spend. And we know we have a whole heap of bills to pay. We glad feed for a little crab. Me just sit down and sell off a little crab them at $200 one. So I'm glad when the Prime Minister went really up the beach.
But there were a few regrets on the business side of things.
Tell you the truth, I wasn't looking for this kind of turnout because it's been a while we haven't seen crowd. So today to us is like Christmas. The only thing that bothered me, I was not planning for this big crowd today. That's a little bit of disappointment on my part.
The business people are aware a spike in cases could lead to another closure, so they are doing their part to help keep persons safe. They have set up hygiene stations at their restaurants. Safety signs are also erected on the restrooms at the facility. Now, further up the road at the Lancet Hall Blue Hole, the situation was similar. Scores of persons came out to enjoy a swim. Residents are convinced the Lancet Hall and Salt River bathing spots can be much larger attractions for locals and tourists. However, it will need developing, and one area the authorities can start is by fixing the roads which have fallen into a state of disrepair. O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
There must be a review of the laws which govern penal facilities. That's the charge from Indicom Commissioner Terence Williams. This follows the death of 81-year-old Noel Chambers, who was in prison for 40 years without trial.
There are many bodies who monitor the prisons. I've already had discussions with public defender, and we are going to speak about what Indicom and public defender can do jointly. I know the bar is now interested in the matter, and they may take on the cases. But I think there is need for prisons and courts to look inwardly and have proper internal reforms to be more efficient regarding these persons. Don't think of them as a file that is closed and put away. This is an ongoing matter. Although they are indefinitely detained, it's an ongoing matter which requires continuous attention.
And how do we make sure that there are no more Noel Chambers is locked up? Is there an audit that needs to be done? Do you know if anything like that is being done now?
Well, I would hope so. I'd hope an audit, because one of the things that we asked them to do in our investigation is to make a list. So our request should have produced that audit for them.
A report produced by Indicom last week revealed the conditions of the inmates as well as the death of Mr. Chambers at the Tower Street Adult Correctional Facility in Kingston. The death of Mr. Chambers has caused outrage, with former acting public defender Matunda Makula calling for the resignation of the head of the Department of Corrections. In relation to Susan Bogle, the 44-year-old disabled woman who was shot dead in Augustown last month, Mr. Williams says that case again highlighted the need for the security forces to wear body cameras.
Oftentimes, the primary witnesses will be the police or soldiers themselves. And because of a blue wall code of silence, in Jamaica we call it squaddy culture. Because of that, sometimes some members of the force are encouraged not to speak truth or not to be forthcoming. So the camera could confirm what the police or military say, it could refute it. But it is now a common appendage all around the world. And in Jamaica, with our high rates of police-involved killings, we certainly need to have that in place in Jamaica years ago.
Meanwhile, Mr. Williams is calling for a level playing field in dealing with acts of criminality by members of the security forces. He says the ruling, which was handed down by the UK-based Privy Council to Indicom, is impartial. That ruling by the Privy Council will see Indicom carrying out investigations against members of the JCF, the Director of Public Prosecutions doing the ruling, and then the police carrying out the charge. For the Indicom Commissioner, that cannot suffice, as it will give the police the authority to withdraw the case if it sees fit.
Charge me. And in the current arrangement, which we hope will not continue, the police will be able to put their case before the court immediately, while the Indicom case will have to finish all the investigations. The police don't wait on that. They put the case before the court, even though investigations aren't finished. Our case will then have to go to DPP for ruling. Police would not require that. And so the police case is in the court much earlier than the case brought on the benefit of the ordinary citizen.
Mr. Williams says the restriction now being faced by Indicom is due to how the law was constructed by Parliament.
But this situation where the police charge people who allege that the police have injured them is so prevalent, and it leads to the police having an easier access to the courts. And we are in a country where we should have equal protection.
The Privy Council had said in its ruling that it was clear that Indicom's role is investigative. It said that the Act did not confer any expressed powers on the Commissioner, the Commission, or its staff to prosecute members of the police force. Murders up to June 6 of this year have surpassed the figure for the corresponding period in 2019. Figures released by the Jamaica Constabulary Force show an increase of 3 murders over the period, bringing the total so far this year to 584. Of the 19 police divisions, 8 recorded increases. The divisions with the highest increases in murders include Kingston Central, Kingston Western, St. Andrew North, and St. Catherine North. And it's time for a break here on the Midday News, but stay with us. We have more stories right after these messages. Welcome back, and we're continuing the news. Hundreds of mourners turned up at a candlelight vigil held Saturday night to remember Minister of Labour and Social Security Shaheena Robinson. The night was held in St. Anne's Bay. Shabella Pullen reports.
Candles lit all around, from the AGR Byfield Highway into St. Anne's Bay to the St. Anne Northeast Constituency Office, where Shaheena Robinson spent most of her political years as Member of Parliament. Saturday night, hundreds of supporters dressed in green gathered at 3 main locations in the constituency: Lime Hall, Exchange and St. Anne's Bay.
She was a mentor, she was a mother to the parish, not only for a particular party, but for everybody. And tonight we come out to celebrate her life, to give thanks. In everything we have to give thanks. I'm overwhelmed. I'm sad about losing her.
Her political colleagues from near and far were also present to remember Mrs. Robinson, including Member of Parliament for East Rural St. Andrew, Juliet Holness.
She had such a love and devotion to her people that has never been seen before. If you talk to Shaheena, she knows every taxi driver, every bus driver, every man or woman selling on the streets. It is not every day that you have a representative like that. Shaheena will be missed in ways that are immeasurable. Shaheena, we love you. We know that you are at peace. We know you are no longer in pain, but it is hard to say goodbye.
Shaheena, she transcended, she went beyond borders. She wasn't just that MP who spoke for Northeast St. Anne. She was an MP who was a Trojan for the people. Certainly an inspiration to women in the Jamaica Labour Party. A woman who, when I was just appointed to the Senate, had very kind words for me, very caring hands.
Although early days yet, the constituents are anxious to know who will be their next representative. Mrs. Robinson held the seat for more than a decade, so many say it won't be easy to fill.
One of the last words Shaheena said to me, Tyrone, I beg you, don't lose my legacy, because she has done so much for this constituency, and we don't want ever again to see this constituency change from a JLP party, because if it ever go back again, and we all have to put hands on heart together to make sure that this Northeast St. Anne stay the champion for Shaheena.
I can tell you that no one can ever replace in Northeast St. Anne. She is the number one. No one can ever take her place. No one.
And who of us mighty good Andrew Wallace send come can replace Shaheena Robinson?
Mrs. Robinson died on May 29 at the age of 66. Shamela Pullen, TVJ News.
A multi-million-dollar high dependency unit building has been officially opened at the St. Anne's Bay Hospital in St. Anne. The unit is part of a program under the Ministry of Health and Wellness for the reduction of maternal and child mortality in Jamaica.
A maternal and neonatal high dependency unit, HDU, is the latest addition to the St. Anne's Bay Hospital. It includes isolation suites, maternal isolation suites, as well as other specialized units and equipment. The unit is designed to provide specific levels of care to mothers and babies who need more attention than the average patient on a maternal ward. And the primary aim is to reduce Jamaica's child mortality and maternal mortality rate.
To have a child, it's an environment which requires post-operative care, close observation, and clearly it's important in giving both the mother and the child the best possible care so that they can overcome this particular fragile period. The HDUs, high dependence units, form a part of the PROMAC strategic objective of attaining the United Nations Millennium Development Goals, now termed the Sustainable Development Goals, which focus on reducing maternal and child mortality ratios.
Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Christopher Tufton, says the hospital is the first of 5 institutions in the country where an HDU infrastructure will be established. For now, the unit is expected to improve the quality of care available for thousands of critically ill neonates and high-risk pregnant women in St. Anne. The other hospitals that are expected to benefit from an HDU are the Victoria Jubilee Hospital, Spanish Town Hospital, Bustamante Hospital for Children, and the Cornwall Regional Hospital. A training component is also underway for nurses in neonatology, maternal medicine, emergency obstetrics, and critical care. The project, which was funded by the European Union (EU), is valued at $329 million. While expressing gratitude to the EU, Dr. Tufton adds that the infrastructure will strengthen Jamaica's capacity to respond to an important cause.
It strengthens our capacity to respond in a way that builds on the achievements that we have had and secures and reinforces the resilience that we should be seeking as we face or confront the public health challenges in our population.
Shane Masters, TVJ News.
And as more COVID-19 restrictions are being relaxed, Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton is reminding persons to still take precautions while out in public. He was also speaking at the recently held opening of the official high dependency unit at the St. Anne's Bay Hospital.
With the lifting of restrictions, the risk profile around COVID-19 will change. The capacity for spread will increase. Persons coming in from overseas, our Jamaicans or visitors as the case may be, it will change the dynamics. Now, this is not to say we're against in public health what is happening. It's not to say that as a government we are divided on the issue, as some are suggesting. It's just to say that there is a messaging that is going to be important to accompany the lifting of restrictions in light of the pandemic that we still are facing.
He warned that persons who refuse to take precautions will be punished.
Anyone who is depending on the public health system solely to keep us safe or to keep you safe while you do whatever you want to do, while you are, let me court controversy by saying maybe careless or irresponsible in your comings and goings as it relates to the public health, meaning ignoring the mask wearing advisory or being around someone with symptoms and not asking them to quarantine or to see a doctor. Anyone who takes those risks are likely to suffer the consequences.
The Jamaica Agricultural Society, JAS, says losses to the sector due to the COVID-19 pandemic could skyrocket to $30 billion. JAS President Lenworth Fulton says farmers are still racking up financial losses from the economic decline. Mr. Fulton was speaking in an interview with TVJ News last night.
I was putting some figures together, but it's not complete. But I'm quite certain it's going to run probably in a rough way, which I see at least 30 billion. And that figure is rough because I am doing some work and RADA is doing some work. So we will soon come up with that, but I don't think it will ever fall below that.
He added that the losses would have been higher if the government did not intervene to cushion the economic blow to farmers. In news overseas, almost all coronavirus restrictions in New Zealand will be lifted tomorrow after the country recorded no active cases. More from the CNN.
This is a significant moment, a moment to celebrate for the 5 million people who called New Zealand home as it reports 0 active coronavirus cases, the first time since COVID-19 first arrived in New Zealand on February the 28th. This also follows 17 consecutive days of zero local new infections. And as a result, New Zealand and the government has announced it is easing its pandemic restrictions to a level 1 alert effective midnight tonight. We heard from the Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern in a press conference within the last hour. Here's what she said.
New Zealanders did 0 active cases in New Zealand. We have tested almost 40,000 people for COVID-19 in the past 17 days and none have tested positive. We had no one in hospital for COVID-19 for 12 days. It's been 40 days since the last case of community transmission, 22 days since that person finished their self-isolation. And so today, I can announce that Cabinet has agreed we will now move to level 1.
And in sports, England and Manchester City forward Raheem Sterling has backed protests taking place across the UK, describing racism as a disease. Thousands of people have taken part in Black Lives Matter marches in the UK, despite government warnings to avoid mass gatherings because of the threat of the coronavirus. The Jamaican-born 25-year-old insisted the protests are important at this time.
The only, disease right now is the racism that we're fighting. I think this right now, I see a lot of people on socials and stuff, supporting the cause. But, this is something that needs more than just talking. We need to actually implement change and highlight the places that do need changes. But this is something that I myself, will continue to do. And spark these debates and, get people in my industry, looking at themselves